Hello and welcome to Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London. And you can find me on Ravelry as a designer under the name Skeindeer Knits, and you can find me on Instagram as Skeindeer. But for the best place of getting in touch, joining the community, taking part in knit-alongs and various chats and discussions, that would be my Ravelry group Skeindeer Knits, which is where you can do all of the above, because I'm a bit of a knit-alongaholic. I host several, and the current 3 knit-alongs I believe that I am hosting is the 1 year-long knit-along of 2018, where we are aspiring to make 6 pairs of colourwork mittens for the duration of 2018. More on that in the group, rules and whatnot. And there is the knit along for my very first garment design, my Blåfjell yoke. It's a yoked sweater. Let me show you. I haven't shown it to you in quite some time, have I? This is the sweater in question. Tad bit warm to wear it today, so I just like to kind of have it hanging behind me here. And yeah, I've seen so many awesome color combination of this sweater in my group and on Instagram. And it's making me so happy, and I feel like you guys have thought of colour combinations that were way better than the ones I thought of. But blue is a pretty likeable colour, so I'm very happy with my choice as well. But yeah, it's inspired me to actually start thinking about, is it too soon to say publicly? I have been thinking about maybe doing child sizes. We'll see about that. It's a very theoretical thing for me because I have no children in my life whatsoever. I live in a very central part of East London. There are just kind of hipster youth around here. The families have moved out. There is, so if I do this, I have to do the maths and then I have to have other people try it out, because I have literally no knowledge on this particular area until I have kind of fully done my research. And I'm currently working on that research, so I thought that'd be worth mentioning. But for the time being, the knit along is for this adult size sweater. And there is no deadline for it as of yet. There is just, you knit, you can probably still join in. I like to decide the deadline so it's so far ahead that even if you just cast on, you should be able to finish in time. And seeing as there is no deadline yet, you should be able to join still. That's kind of the logic we're working from. Also, if I hadn't made it clear already, my 5 more mitts are eligible for the year-long knit-along. And I have also forgotten to completely mention that my Sarbu mitten club mittens are now available for purchase individually. They have been for quite some time. I just didn't tell anyone in this group. This podcast. Oh my days. We're already unable to talk, and we were like, what, 3 minutes in? Anyway, there is a 3rd knit along going on as well, which is the Skeindeer sock along, because I published my very first sock collection and I thought it would be very appropriate to have a knit along for that as well. These socks are intended for people who may be skilled at making socks but have never done colourwork socks, or people who are skilled at colourwork but haven't done socks. Either way, I hope these socks will kind of ease you into whatever of the two you are foreign to. And yeah, they're very quick. They're really fast to make. I did 3 pairs in a week, I think, when I was like, oh god, I was gonna publish this soon and I haven't yet, and I have to go away to Edinburgh soon and I just need to have all this stuff ready. And I just kind of churned through it and it was really quick. So that's actually the origin story of them as well. I was gonna make belated Christmas presents, so that's kind of where the first 2 pairs were made. And I made the other pair as I was traveling around in New York, and then the last 3, you know the story there. And before we get into the meat of the episode, I thought we could talk about what I'm wearing. I am wearing the flea cardigan, which is a design by Pinnegudi, also known as the Needle Lady, or her name is on me there, the 3 aliases there. This is my version. It was knit in Holst Super Soft. Did have a few modifications. I believe I put a few stitches for the front rather than the back, so it's not I don't quite remember the stitch distribution that I did there, but it does mean I have enough room for the bust area and it's not too floppy on the back. And I did it also cropped. Hindsight, wish I hadn't done it as cropped, because whole Super Soft has a way of creeping up height wise as you wear it. You know, kind of superwash and stuff has a way of just growing. This does grow a tad bit width wise, like it's still on gauge, but it's sort of grown anyway. I don't know how that works, but lengthwise, height-wise, it's of shrunk, so it's somewhere between cropped and bolero right now, but I still enjoy wearing it. Although Given I decided to use my studio light today, I might need to take it off because that light produces a lot of heat. And yeah, the sunlight and everything is suddenly become warm again after it's been freezing for the past few days. London just doesn't know what kind of season it wants to be right now. I did host a giveaway the last episode because I had reached 10,000 subscribers. I will be contacting the winners individually, so I thought it would be a bit boring for you guys to just have like 8 random names being listed here. So I just wanted to thank everyone for taking part, and I want to thank all the designers that have donated their designs for a giveaway. And also want to make sure for future reference, if I am hosting a giveaway, please read through the rules. There were a number of disqualified entries this time because they weren't reading the rules properly. It depends how strict I want to be, but I'm like, the rules are there for a reason. It makes just things a lot easier when it comes down to drawing the winners, and I just thought I'd mention that for the future. So anyway, thank you so much for your participation. I really enjoyed reading your entries, and like I said, I'm really grateful for the people that have asked me to host giveaways for their patterns. And so on, and so on, and so on. Where was I going with this? Let's talk about finished objects. I have a number of finished objects. So if you're new to this, first of all, welcome. And of course, welcome to those of you who are not new to this particular thing. Those of you who are new might not know what this is quite about. I'm just sitting here for an hour talking about knitting and the stuff that I knit and stuff and things like that. And one thing you may not know is that I am a very not so monogamous knitter, shall we say. I have about, I want to say 25 running projects right now. I've been struggling for the past few months to just get that number under 20, and it's not really gone well, but I have cast of bound of finished, wrapped up 3 projects, which means I've cast on a number as well. We will get to that in works in progress. But as for finished objects, let's start with one that doesn't really count, because this was the finished object in January, so this is technically the 4th finished object. The only thing I wanted to do with these socks was to lengthen them, because the toe ended about here and that didn't really fit me. There was like, yeah, the heel kind of fell under my foot. Instead it was kind of down here, then up here, and so I just ripped it out and joined in with the yarn and continued on. It was a good thing I had decided to stripe these socks in the opposite direction, because that made it really easy for me to just join in the ends that I had broken, because they were coming from either end of the skein, so that's a good decision. Plus it made me a bit less hung up on the whole, like making the stripes correspond. So, you know, here you'll see the red going into green in that direction, but in that way actually the green goes into red, so that's kind of what I mean by striping the opposite direction, which means I got blue going into red and red going to blue for the tip of the toes, which I thought was kind of cute. I don't know. Otherwise they are pretty corresponding in terms of how the stripes kind of distribute around. That made me a bit satisfied. But yeah, these are the Santa's Workshop, dyed by Critium Handmade. More on that in my project page. I don't know, I'm just like trying to change the position I'm holding them to, but it's a vanilla sock thing that I kind of improvised. I think, I don't remember the gauge, but I knit tight, so there's no point telling you needle size, because I will guarantee you knit looser than I do. And I did the kind of toe, you make one left and make one right on each side. No, as I skein it two together because they were cuffed down. And yeah, 60 stitches. I could have done 64, I suppose. I need to try them out a bit more now that they have longer toes and see, actually maybe this whole 60 stitch thing, this whole 60 stitch gauge works for me. It's actually possible that that's not too bad. I used to think that was kind of a ridiculous small number for stitches for a pair of socks, because I do think you should knit socks very densely. At least a gauge of 30 stitches per 10 centimeters, if not more. And this is definitely more, so if I can do that gauge on 60 stitches, I'm pretty happy with that. So one last glance at my Santa's Workshop socks. That should have been done when it was Christmas, when I cast them on, but they're done now in the 1st of May. My second finished project is also a pair of socks. I could show you them on the sock blocker, but I think let's see if this works. You know, this looks just as good. These are the Winter Rose socks by Helen Stewart of the Curious Handmade podcast and design thingy person, and she is very talented. I really love her style. It's a little bit too girly princessy fairy tale for me, but that's kind of why it also appeals to me, because it kind of lets me explore my more I guess feminine side. I am sort of a weird one when it comes to, I can never really tell if I'm like feminine, but I'm not particularly masculine either, so I'm just like yeah, but I'm mainly just quirky, which I guess is somewhere all in between. So sometimes I like to indulge in a bit of lace and prettiness, and then Helen Stewart patterns are usually the place I'm going for that, and I really love these socks. The yarn is Wandering Wool, I think. If not, I will correct it here. There will be information on my project page on Ravelry as usual. It is a lovely, lovely burgundy color that, of course, I could not leave without buying this when I was visiting Frame and Fiber, which is a yarn shop in New Jersey run by my friend Paige, who is Paige Framer on various social medias, and it's just a lovely color. Again, if you're new to this podcast, you may know or realize quickly that I am very fond of burgundy, and I have a very wide definition of burgundy that ranges from like pink and magenta to maroon and reds, and it's like anything that could be called purple, but not lilac, never lilac. Like this is also my dear burgundy, but so is this, and they're kind of different. I don't know, color theory is not a thing I did. So I just want to show you these socks a bit more, just because I am very, very happy with them, and I would definitely recommend this pattern. It was, as they say, potato chippy. I just churned through them, really enjoyed making them. There's a sort of self-striping effect with this very short lace repeat that was very memorizable. I did alter the toes. I kind of peeked at the toes of the next pattern in the collection, which is a lot more rounder, and borrowed a little bit from them. I didn't do it the exact same way as those as well. It was sort of a fusion between the two, which made the toes a bit more rounded, and I liked that look a lot more. And I really want to applaud the instructions for the heel flap and gusset, because they were very, very, very clear, and I really enjoyed making them. So that is my verdict on that. Really good sock pattern. Highly enjoyed it, and yeah. So we've had 2 examples now where I have done socks in hand-dyed yarns. Oh, it's like, this is, again, if you are new to this podcast or you just haven't watched it back to back, which I don't blame you, because this is episode 69 and that will be a lot of hours to put in. My objective with this podcast was to, on one hand, kind of bring forth my more traditionally oriented knitting, my love of rustic yarns and colour work, whilst at the same time sucking up all the information from what's coming from the more kind of contemporary modern podcaster sphere, the knitting world, where it's all about hand-dyed yarns and indie designers and the new stuff. And I am dabbling into that, so I have done a number of socks and shawls, which seems to be what it's all about, and wasn't something I did much unless I could kind of put some color work in there. And so yeah, I have kind of found my sweet spot when it comes to hand-dyed yarns in socks, which is a BFL nylon. It seems to be the kind of happy middle ground for me. I really like the sturdiness. It's just like less likeliness to pill. Oh, English. Also, if you know this podcast, this is not my native language, so things come out a bit meh sometimes, but we're just going with it. And yeah, also exploring a lot of independent designers, and have been very happy to find out that a lot of the independent designers nowadays are moving towards kind of my side of things, which is the more traditional and the color works and the yokes and whatnot. So everyone's happy, we all get to have a little taster of every little region, and I think that's pretty awesome. So that was my wrap up of these finished socks. There are 2 of them, in case I didn't show you. They were so pretty. Now I have 2 more finished objects. I don't really count the stripy socks, so there are 3. I have knitted 2 shawls, and this is all lace. So we had lace socks now and 2 lace shawls. I'm not sure which order to do them in, so let's start with a shawl you have never ever seen before, because I cast this on last Monday and finished it on Friday morning. So from Monday evening till Friday morning was all the time it took me to make this shawl. I would say that's 4 days. The 4-day shawl, and it's huge. And here it is. This is the Friendship Shawl by Sylvia McFadden, and it's coming from the Gentle Armour book, and I adore this shawl. Now, as you will notice, I have kind of done some sort of color blocking gradient, what not, I don't know, the gradient didn't really work, so it's more like color blocking. I only had one skein for each color, and the pattern called for 3 skeins of worsted weight yarn. Now the thing is, I think I could have been alright with 2, because I did this shawl a lot larger than it's called for, so I think I would have been okay with 2. But if I had only used these 2, it would have just looked like I had had a bit of a mishap with the dye lots. So I decided to add the third anyway, so that it looks intentional, these different colors. And the yarn is Lamia organic wool. It's a yarn I was given by the Turkish online yarn shop Hobium. They just gave me this huge box of yarn and never asked anything of me, not to mention the podcast or anything, so I was just free to do what I wanted with it. And so I chose to talk about it on the podcast. I did an unboxing, and I have used some of the yarns for giveaway prizes, and I've used some for Christmas presents, and now I'm using one for a shawl for myself. And this was by far my favorite yarn of the bunch. So it's a non-superwash yarn, but it's very, very, very soft. I think a lot of people, maybe because they know me or because of how this looks, expected this to feel rather harsh, but it's very, very soft. I wonder if it's like an organic merino or something. It is really soft, but it's not superwash, like I said, so quite matte in the feel rather than the glossy superwash that we may associate with merino. And oh, I really, really love it. But yeah, let's talk about what I've done differently. The lace probably stops here in the pattern. I may have had enough brown to just finish here and then done the rib, the garter in this color, but again, I wanted it to be longer, bigger, because I always want shawls to be bigger. So I did another lace repeat, which was a bit of a slog, but you know, given it probably just took me a day, it wasn't really, the whole thing was quick. And then obviously, because there was more stitches now, the garter section couldn't be as big as in the pattern, so this is probably 10 garter ridges less than it should have been, but I don't really care. I don't necessarily see the reason why I would have so many more garter ridges. And yeah, and let me just do a bit of a undress now to show you how I enjoy wearing this shawl. So I enjoy wearing this shawl like this because it keeps my entire backside warm, and there's still enough that I can properly tie it around my waist. See, it's a little knot. No, you can't see that. But yeah, and then I just stay nice and warm, and I feel very kind of old school and, I don't know, very old-fashioned, like I'm wearing a Scottish hat or something, which is a look I always aspire to. And so that's about it really. I love this shawl. I love having made it so quickly. I think worsted weight shawls is definitely an area worth exploring more, not just because they're fast and because I think speed of how long it takes to knit necessarily dictates to the extent I want to make it. I just think a shawl is supposed to keep me warm, maybe on my shoulders, on my back, around my neck, and sometimes a thinner shawl does that job less. And so while they have a purpose and practical use as well, I think these do also, and they're just as valid. And it is really gratifying though to have made it so fast, but that's not really my main reason to recommend these. I just find them so wearable, the way they just kind of hold up around my neck when I wear them that way, and I don't know, there's just something with that that resonates with me. I think shawls in thicker yarns, definitely. So if I didn't say it clearly already, that was a design by Sylvia McFadden, mostly known for the Waiting for Rain shawl, but she has done the amazing, lovely booklet Gentle Armour, which speaks to me on so many levels. I bought this when I was visiting Vancouver, which is where Sylvia is based, and I just, yeah, it really speaks to me, the whole message of that book, kind of what knitwear can be to you, and it was like to kind of be, I guess, the more sort of sensitive soul, and having your knitwear as being your gentle armour. I don't know, there's just something about that entire book that really appealed to me. And whilst I was a little bit sort of, oh no, they're all asymmetrical and crescent shapes, I managed to find this triangle shape that really appealed to me. And I know there is also a big square, which is tempting. Maybe if I get hold of more of this Lamia organic wool yarn, which again you can get on Hobium. There is very little information about this yarn on Ravelry. They don't have a yarn page there or anything, so I know very little about it other than it being called Lamia organic wool, and it's very affordable. And so yeah, I'm no stranger to the idea that I might knit with it again, and maybe I'll do like a cable something with it, because I can imagine this will be great for cabling. That's that. We should probably move on to the last finished object, which means I will have to take this off, because there's another thing I think I want to wear to show you. Whew. Now see, this was the reason I wanted to wear my fleece cardigan today, because they go really well together. Look at that. So, no, that looks ridiculous, but I kind of want to show you the shawl and not my hair, so we're just going to go with it. This is the Canopy shawl by Melody Hoffman. Ooh. It is my very first Melody Hoffman knit, and if you don't know, she is Spee Mandarinas here and there on the internet. She has a YouTube channel, and she is a very prolific designer and has been published in the likes of Lane magazine, and just has a very distinct Melody Hoffman style to her knits. It's just a very lovely aesthetic, and so I knew I had to knit something of hers. I already have another shawl of hers in my queue and wish list, and going to Edinburgh Yarn Festival, I knew that one of the two shawls I wanted to knit I'd had to shop for. And so when I went to the Fibre Company booth, I picked up Road to China, which is their, I want to say, fingering to sport weight silk merino cashmere baby pack, or maybe this one merino, I don't remember, but all the soft yarns are in this shawl. This shawl with this yarn has ruined me for all other yarns, and I'm not the only one saying that. It is literally the effect of this yarn is when you have been handling this for quite some time and you pick up your other knit with maybe your favorite yarn, that will feel so coarse and awful by comparison to this, because it's so soft. It's like there is no comparison really. It's just so lovely, and I am so, it's a luxury treat, this thing, this entire purchase, and having made it, and so maybe yeah, you want to see a close-up. This is the shawl in person. It used just under 400 meters, so I have a bit of a leftover. This is the only thing that was left. It's actually a pretty generous portion of the last of the three skeins. They are 50 grams, so you only need 3, but clearly didn't use much of the last one. So you could do this with probably any 400 meter skein, quite frankly. Though I highly recommend using the Road to China yarn, because it is just a delight. And yeah, it has a very pretty texture lace thing going on here. There are 3 repeats of it. First one was very fast, obviously there were a lot fewer stitches. Second one, I noticed it took a bit longer, and so for the third one, this almost ended up becoming a UFO, but then I just picked it up again, and I think after having done that other lace shawl in just a week's time, it didn't feel quite as much anymore. So I just powered through, and as I was binge watching The Man in the High Castle, I just picked up the Knitted on Edge. I just knitted through it. It is a very memorizable repeat. There's not much going on, not much you could confuse one with the other. It's mainly just like yarn overs and knitted togethers and stuff, so it was really easy to do, and I just got faster and faster and faster as I did it, and it was done by today. So this was finished yesterday, and look, here we are. Was it finished the day before? I don't remember. The days are blending together. Oh dear. But yeah, Canopy shawl. I got a little bit confused with this at first, because the Fibre Company has a Canopy yarn, but they're not related in any way. I don't know why the shawl is called Canopy, but the Fibre Company yarn used this Road to China, and there is a one called Canopy. Probably coincidence, just thought I'd make that clear in case anyone else makes that confusion as well. The pattern is called Canopy, yarn is called Road to China, and it's lovely. And it's certainly not the last time we're gonna see any Fibre Company knitting on this podcast, but I'm not sure what I can say about that thus far, so I'm just gonna tell you there will be more Fibre Company knitting. Yes. So how about that? 4 finished objects. Just, I am very happy with that. I have been putting some more work into my Thrivemuir sweater, but at this point it's just stockinette, so it's just a project that I bring with me wherever I go and just do a few rows here and there, rounds I should say. It's not something I'm rushing with, because the weather is warming up and I will finish whenever I finish, and that's just how it's gonna be. Yeah, it's not a rush. I enjoy having it. It's nice to have a pick up and go stockinette project. Probably what other people feel about socks, but for me it's a yoke. It's usually a yoke. So for works in progress that I will be covering is living in my dragon bag, which is the Alicia Beth cardigan. Haven't worked that much on it, but it looks a lot different because I have put the sleeves aside. So here I am also using hand-dyed yarns. This is a seasonal thing. It happened last year as well. I'm all about the rustic yarns and the colour work. And then come March, April, and I'm feeling spring, and I'm just like, nope, we're going to use hand-dyed yarns and lace. Yeah, it's a thing. It's a passing thing, but this is going to be my summer garment of choice. Probably going to try to enter it into Opera Joe of Stitching the High Notes summer garment cowl, because it's a light fingering, which is a BFL nylon by Travel Knitter in the Brambleberry colorway in a lace pattern. So this is designed by Justyna Lokowska. The design is called Alicia Beth, and as you can see, it's all lace. It's faux cables all the way through, which is actually a lace technique to make it look like cables. And I have the front. I am for once knitting the cardigan back and forth because there's so much purling involved anyway. It really doesn't make a huge difference. It doesn't seem worthwhile sticking, so I'm just not. So because of this lovely construction method that I have babbled about for many occasions, it's just such a neat construction, because you have the shoulder cap, there's a subtle slope to it, and sleeves just comes through it here, but the body works straight down, and it looks like a top-down setting sleeve, but it's not, and I just love it. I think the contiguous method is absolutely brilliant. I look forward to employing it in my own designs in the future, if I ever get around to it. Yeah, I am enjoying it, and it's one of those projects that I'm not rushing either. It's just always in my bag for when I feel like knitting something that isn't stockinette but still fairly mindless, because faux cables are really easy. It's just, yeah, yarn overs, do one type of decrease. It's so easy, you can do it. After having done a few repeats on your own first, it's really straightforward to just pick up and go. So also one of those projects that just lives in my bag for whenever I feel like it's a thing to knit. And I expect the rows will be a lot shorter now that the sleeves are put aside, because that was a lot of purling for 1 minute there, and I'm glad that they will be knit in the round, and I'm now doing the body, which will obviously have fewer stitches than the whole yoke, I guess. Now I did say that I have cast on something as well. I've cast on 2 projects, and they're both knit 2 at a time. I'm not sure what that's all about, but I'm for some reason feeling 2 at a time knits today. I think I was a little bit scared of my winter rose socks becoming a slog for a bit there, and I'm like, while I enjoy knitting 1 rather than 2 at a time, I just know I get such a strong second sock syndrome that I might as well, because it still is superior to the second sock. Even though I prefer the first socks over knitting 2 at a time, 2 at a time is still better than knitting the second sock. Hope that made sense. Anyway, this now lives in my loop and bar bag. Oh, it's such a good drawstring. Good sturdy strong drawstring that keeps the project in place. Get points for that. And yeah, these are my magnolia socks, and they're so pretty. I hope they will fit, because there's a lot more stockinette going on in this than the winter rose socks. So in case you don't know, these are the second socks in the Curious Handmade Sock Society. And I am using Circus Tonic handmade yarn, albeit not the yarn recommended in the pattern. It's a skein that I had in my stash, which I have forgotten the name of, but there's information on my Ravelry project page if you're curious. And I'd love this. I've never knitted this kind of hand-dyed yarns. It's of grade white with subtle speckling, and it's so pretty. I am completely enamored with it, and I'm like, now I get it. But yeah, they're looking a little bit small, but usually these things block out, and I think they'll fit fine. I hope they will, because there's another bow that could mean frogging, and I don't want to frog these because they are so pretty, and I have to say, a lot more complicated than the winter rose socks. The winter rose socks I found very memorizable and just powered through. So far I'm not finding that with these, but maybe in time. I'm only on the second repeat, because the lace repeat is of course more rows, so I may actually find that by the second or the third repeat I actually got the hang of it. So too soon to say anything, but oh, they're so pretty. I'm gonna have the prettiest feet in the world. Things only knitters say that only knitters understand. So I don't really have much more to say about that as of yet. I'm only in the cuff for both of them. So we'll see them later, I suppose. I'm trying to stay on top of this sock society. I would really like to have made all 5 pairs at the end of the year. It would help towards reaching box of socks, although I have failed the previous 2 occasions that I tried to do it. And as of right now, I've really only knitted 1 qualifying pair this year. So probably not gonna make it. Like, yes, I did several pairs for my sock collection, but because they're DK weight, I didn't. Yeah, so oops. Now for the last work in progress. I am not so sure how long this will live. This item has been in my queue for 2 years because ever since I bought this particular book, these mittens just popped out to me, and I knew I wanted to make them, but I've been putting it off for a while because other things were costing instead for whatever reason. So I'm going to show you the photo first. They are handily enough photographed at the very back of the book. So these are the mittens I am now working on in the exact same yarn and colorway. It's from this book, which is Mittens from Norway by Nina Grandin Satted. It's one of the very few Norwegian knitting books that has been translated into English, so you can get that on Amazon and whatnot. And I am having a bit of a struggle with these mittens. So these are my mittens. They're also being knitted 2 at a time, as I implied earlier. And they're very big. I am knitting these to gauge. I am not using the recommended needle size because Nina knits a lot looser than I do. So I just went, okay, it's a 26 stitch gauge. I know what needle size that gives me a 26 stitch gauge with Hillesvåg Ask because of the yarn I use a lot, and I use these needles a lot. And for the little stockinette down here, I used a slightly smaller needle size, and that became tighter than gauge. So I'm knitting to gauge, but they are becoming huge. But maybe they're supposed to be, because looking at those photos, it is actually quite loose fitting on the model. So just to give you an idea, she's wearing them, and you can see they are very loose on her. She could probably have those cuffs over the cuff of her jacket. And that's kind of the case here as well. The cuffs are very, very loose. And these have not been blocked, so I'm feeling that they're just going to get looser. I'm knitting to gauge. I don't know what to say. They are just becoming very big, and they might supposed to be, like I said on the photo, the cuff looks a lot looser than the actual mittens. So it might just be how the design is, but I'm now wondering if that's how I want it to be or not. This is probably going to be a gift from my sister because, funnily enough, she kept talking to me about what stuff she wanted knitted because she's actually fairly knit worthy, surprisingly enough, and she found the photo of these mittens, and I'm like, hey, you bought that yarn because I told you to get yarn from that shop when they were selling out all their Ask yarn before they were shutting down, and asked you specifically to get that yellow skein because of these mittens that I wanted to make. So yeah, I can do that. And it's finally happening, and it's sort of like the cables help making it a bit snug, but I'm not sure how it will survive blocking, so I might just give it a soak and dry to see, but I'm not very hopeful. If anything, you know, they are gonna grow, but they're comfortable though. Like, they're fairly comfortable wearing. Maybe they're just not supposed to be tight. I'm overthinking it and it's fine, but it just feels a bit ridiculous at the same time. I don't know. What I could have done is, what I'm thinking of doing, I should say, is maybe ripping them out, doing it again, but doing it in the recommended needle size. Now I know that's going to be way, way, way too tight. I will probably achieve a gauge of 30 stitches rather than, or you may even tighter, rather than 26. That's quite an extreme difference. But then I will know just how tight the cuffs can be, and I can go up as I get across the cuffs, get to the hand. But given the design of these, this is supposed to be rather uniform throughout, and it would look a bit odd if they suddenly kind of space out. So I don't know. It's a little bit of a conundrum. So these are the mittens so far, the only close-up you're going to see, I think. And I'm using Ask by Hillesvåg, which is one of my favourite yarns. It's a 100% Norwegian white sheep yarn and has been dyed in one of my favourite shades of yellow that Hillesvåg does. They are really, really good yellows. And yeah, I'm very excited about having made these, but they may just need to be re-knitted, which isn't making me that upset because these just took me last night to knit. They're actually quite quick. It was a very long last night, to be honest. It's sort of overlapping with my work day a little bit. But as you can see, they didn't actually take me that long. So it's just not fun frogging. Especially if you find out later that you didn't really have to frog because it was supposed to be that way. And I'm just, oh. But I finally did it, and it is my sister's birthday in 10 days. They're probably not going to be done with her by that time. She probably doesn't remember that she said she wanted them, so I might just save them for Christmas. Because it's not like she's going to use them over the summer anyway, so they're probably going to be a Christmas present. Can't hurt to be early with that, right? Right? So that brings us into sewing. Wow, it feels so weird that I am saying that. That's not usually my line, but I have been dabbling into sewing a bit lately after having said for a whole year that I will dabble into sewing. I, for the first time last episode, did show you a bit of sewing, and I have done a little bit more. I mainly focus on making project bags. It's very straightforward. The whole idea of like fit and comfort and all that stuff is out the window. I'm just making stuff to put my knitting in because I keep casting on stuff, so clearly I need that. And I don't quite remember what I showed you last time. I believe I showed you this bag, which I made up the dimensions myself, and it had that kind of frilly end, which, yeah, I know what I should have done. I know I should have sewn in these first. There's no need to tell me that. I'm just kind of hindsight, you know. So it's a nice box bottom, pretty cool bag, and this one I did first with the help of a friend of mine, so that's probably the prettiest and neatest one, quite frankly. None of these have drawstrings for the drawstring bags yet, so I'll need to get that, or just remember where I put it in my stash. But yeah, we have another 2 bags and another surprise item. Let's do the surprise item first. I was looking into my cable fabric, the knitted cable fabric, and so I just do a whole bag with that. It will be the same on the inside and the outside, and I'll just fold it over and sew over the bit so that it will become a bag. But then I accidentally turned it inside out before I had done the whole cutting off corners and stuff to make it a boxed bottom. And as I pulled it inside out, I was like, this fits my cushion. I have a cushion that didn't get a cover the way my Marius cushion did, and it totally fit. So I have made a cushion cover without even intending to. It's completely sewn shut, so where is the, oh yeah, there we are. I think it's the little opening here. So there we are, I have a cushion with a very lovely knitted fabric. I mean, it's not a knitted fabric, but you know, there's a knitted printed fabric. I believe this is woven, as they say. Yeah, I'm just surprisingly proud of that, how that just happened. And yeah, it's really nice, and I love cushions, so can't hurt having another knit themed cushion with my Marius cushion. So we're now down to the last 2 bags. I tried to test out my interfacing because this particular fabric here is rather thin, so I wanted this to be the outside and this to be the inside. So this is white on black and this is black on white. And the problem with this, although it's pretty nice, I'm fairly happy with it. It's got some flaws, like the interfacing almost popping out here because apparently these didn't fold over right when I seamed it. Yeah, rookie mistake. The interfacing is really not nice. Can you hear that? I'm not gonna sorry for the crinkling or whatever people say. This is intentional. It's just very, I don't like it. It's a really icky feel and sound, but yeah, mainly just like, I don't know, it feels like I've just filled up this thing with plastic. It's not nice. Maybe it will kind of soften up, I don't think so. So that was one try. I mean, I'm still only using my lesser fabrics to try this out, so it's kind of fine, but yeah, I don't know, it just feels like it's been lined with plastic. It's not great. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to stick to my thicker fabrics until I get my good interfacing in the mail. So I just focused on this dotted fabric again, which is fairly thick. It's more of a cotton canvas, is that a thing? And And this one I'm really happy with. So in this case, I did sew in the edges all around before I sewed anything together. It made it slightly too tough for the sewing machine to work with. You can actually see some of the seams showing up here. They're not supposed to, but it just did. And it was kind of tough when working over here because there's so much overlap. That wasn't really great. So I did break my needle once because there's just too much now that is folded over. So I can see why this particular pattern didn't actually instruct to do that, but it would have worked better when I was not having so many fabrics overlapping with the other one where the frilly bits were showing. So now I'm learning that as well, and I don't know what else to tell you. It's still not quite lined up. You can see the dots and these lines, nothing is working out, but it's sort of practically working, and I hope I can fit a thin drawstring in here, even though it's very, very tight now that I have done this sewn over seams fabrics. Terminology, hopefully you know what I mean. It's very thick and I can barely get my fingers through here, so I'm not sure if I can get any fabric through, but I hope I will, you know, worth trying. And on the inside there's more birds. I really love this fabric, and I've used up all of the black dotted fabric and the bird fabric and the cable fabric. So sewing through my fabric stash, which maybe you don't think is a very big fabric stash, but for someone who doesn't sew, it's bigger than it needs to be. I think it's fair to say. So yeah, another drawstring bag, and I will get the strings at some point. So lastly, there is acquisitions. I have been fairly good with the yarn shopping lately. I haven't bought a single skein. However, lovely Alien, who watches this podcast and has been, yeah, just following the journey for a long time, and I know her from Instagram, and yeah, she decided to donate a little something for the podcast that I could use for myself for giveaways. And so yeah, I'll be keeping some of these, and some I will be saving aside for Cal prices mainly. And yeah, let's begin. I've got this, oh, this is very, very crinkly, Ullgarn, which is this is the yarn numbering system, which is something I've intended to learn, but 8 out of 2 I think basically means 400 meters per 100 gram, which is kind of my gold standard for fingering weight. So it's by Ullcentrum. It's a grey and a red, which I think is beautiful and perfect, and I really love them. So chances are I'll be keeping this one. If you don't know, then Ullcentrum is a Swedish yarn company that makes yarn out of the Swedish Gotland sheep. And there's more of that here. I got these two, and they are supposedly that yarn as well, but for sport weight. And I definitely think this feels a lot like the other Gotland yarn that I have. But this feels more like the white sheep that we have in Norway as well. I don't think this is Gotland, but it's sort of, I guess, meant to work with this, and it totally does. So I'm gonna just assume that these are different breeds, even though it doesn't actually say, because this feels a lot coarser than this more long-haired Gotland sheep yarn. And yeah, that's the label. Yeah, you can see the logo here actually. There we are. I really love this company. You can get the yarn from Midwinter Yarns here in the UK, and they're great. I have 2 skeins of these already, one in black and white, so chances are I'll be putting these in the knit along price pile, which I have recently emptied for all the knit alongs I've been hosting, so it's nice to have it replenished. And then I also got these lovely bundles. Sorry if you can see any like little grey cardboard bits on them, because the envelope these came in, I just like shredded it open, and it's like full of, well, shreds of cardboard in the lining of that bag. That's kind of how it's padded, yeah. So that just went all over these yarns. I'm still like picking up little cardboard knobs. But yes, the yarn is beautiful. This is Tant Kofta, which is a Swedish hand dyer, and this is the Angorette yarn. And the other one is Merino Extra Fine. So Angorette is basically 70% Merino, 25% Angora. I don't know if that's the Angora rabbit or the Angora goat, but since we usually call the Angora goat mohair, I believe, I'm gonna assume it's the rabbit. And 5% polyester. And the Merino Extra Fine is 100% Merino. So I'm gonna go on a whim and say that this is the Merino, these are the Angora Merino polyester. Yes. And they are like fluffier and just, oh, they're so nice. They would be great for a sort of Boohoo's yoke or something. These are all lace weight, I want to say. They're 750 meters per 100 grams. They work well together, but since this is a different base, it might be one that I keep because I have an idea for it. So I'll keep the ones with the same bases together for sure. And yeah, I think they're lovely. So it's like they're on fire. They're really great. So thank you so much, Ellie, and thank you so much for donating to the podcast and to myself, because she also sent 2 bars of chocolate, and we kind of have the same chocolates in Norway and Sweden. They just have different labels on them, but they also sometimes come with different flavorings, and these were 2 that we certainly don't have in Norway, and they're gone now. Don't know where they went, but they're gone. So thank you, that was really nice, and it made my weekend because I had chocolates for a change. Now, I myself have only done 1 purchase this week, 1 purchase, and I think it's one that we all knew that I was going to do, and that is, of course, West Highland Way by Kate Davies, because I am the biggest, greatest fangirl of Kate Davies' work of all times, so nobody is surprised, and that means we are 1 step closer to me perhaps, maybe, possibly doing a bulk review of all of her pattern publications. Now, Kate Davies is also coming out with a more autobiographical book, but I will not be including that whenever it comes because it's sort of a different thing, and so I will only be doing the stuff with knitting patterns in them. And I love this book so much. I'm not going to give a review, I'm just going to talk you through it a little bit. So it's a theme of the West Highland Ways, so I can read from the blurb. Let's do that. In this collaborative creative projects, they celebrate their home, their workplace, and the landscape that inspires them every day. Kate began by creating a collection of 12 hand-knit designs, each with its own distinctive story. And there's a lot more, but it's basically about Kate Davies and Tom Barr live by Scotland's best loved long distance walking route, the West Highland Way. And it's just so many good stuff in here, and the photos and the text, it's just the best from both of them. I mean, Tom is a great photographer and Kate is a great knitter and writer, so this is such a treat. You just get, there's so much more than knitting patterns in here, but it's not at the expense of the knitting patterns, so there's still the same number and quality of patterns that you've come to expect from Kate. And will you look at this cardigan? This is with her new tweed yarn, which is a lot finer, I believe, than her bouquet yarn, so I would not mind making that, quite frankly. And this one, I love this. I'm not sure what it is about it, but I really love this. I would love to do a cardigan of it. So this is just a sweater, huge sweater, but if I steeked it, wouldn't that be great? So this is how she wears it. Thinking, what if it had a button band? Would that, I'm just thinking, this is not a thing I have stashed for right now, so can't really, but yeah, this is just like the content page. I mean, it's great. It's such, I can't believe they keep making these products, 1 every year of this quality. And I mean, just, is she knitting anything else? Like, this is such an accomplishment, and the fact that they come out every year, usually in time for Edinburgh Yarn Festival, but not this year, and they weren't vending anyway, so it didn't make a huge difference. But I'm very impressed as ever, and when I've gotten more familiarized with this, I'm gonna try to see if I can find some space in a future episode to do a bulk review of all of her publications and kind of just compare and contrast them a little bit. So yeah, that is all I have for this week's episode. I will be contacting the winners for last week's giveaways privately. If not, I will at least, you know, notify the people that are handing out the prizes, and it will all be sorted. And thank you so much for taking part. I feel like there's other stuff I was supposed to mention in this episode, but my mind's gone completely blank, and I now need to get on to some serious PhD work because this is sadly not my full-time endeavour for the time being, so duty's calling and I gotta get on that. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.